Welcome to Facebook Live. This is Marcus from Aroma Thyme, and just got some really good news today. Well, this has been good news mounting. Back in May of 2016 or 2015, it's been a while. It's actually been well over a year that the Ulster County Ulster County passed a law that said no more styrofoam in containers. I'm sorry, in restaurants. That restaurants are not allowed to use styrofoam to do to-go containers anymore. And since we're green certified and very green minded here at Aroma Time, we're like, wow, some of the other restaurants can now do some of these greener practices. And styrofoam is just a nasty product to begin with. First of all, styrofoam is made from styrene, expanded form. It expands into styrofoam. So styrene, styrofoam, sometimes they're used interchangeable. So it is illegal in Ulster County. So if you go out to a restaurant and they're putting your food in a to-go container that is styrofoam, that is totally illegal. Now, here's the bad news about that. New Paltz, New York, and Kingston, New York were the only cities that were really enforcing that. And I said something to the health inspector about 6-7 months ago. I said, hey, it's a great law that was passed, but who's enforcing it? And he goes, Marcus, nobody's enforcing this law right now. Nobody out there is enforcing it. New Paltz is doing their own enforcing, and Kingston is doing their own enforcing. He goes, but all of Ulster County, restaurants are still using styrofoam like crazy. So I'm scratching my head with the health department, and they're like, yeah, we don't get it. Well, today I got my health inspection. The health inspector came in. The very first question he asked me, he said, hey, Marcus, I know you're probably not, but I have to ask and I have to enforce this now. He goes, do you have any styrofoam to-go containers in your restaurant? And I started clapping. I'm like, finally. I said, are you now enforcing that? And he goes, it's my job now to enforce that restaurants are doing that. So super happy. Kudos to Ulster County Health Department. But now here's the bad thing. Some restaurants aren't going to get inspected for another 6 months or 8 months or maybe 10 months. So they could still be using styrofoam. And then, of course, there's really no point violation on it. So it's not really a major violation. So restaurants can still be using this for another year or 2 years before it really goes down to where they're being forced to stop using it. But it's great that somebody's actually out there enforcing it now. So just to recap what styrofoam is and how bad it is for you and the environment, some agencies classify styrofoam as a carcinogen. Of course, our EPA does not, but there are a lot of studies and a lot of agencies that say, hey, no, styrofoam is definitely a carcinogen. And the reason why certain municipalities or counties across the country are banning it is because nobody really wants to recycle it anymore. Even though you'll look on the back of a styrofoam container and it has that little circle with the arrows for recycling, it's getting harder and harder to recycle because of the logistics of it. To make styrofoam causes a lot of air pollution. They use benzene, they use dioxins, they use a bunch of nasty chemicals. It's not a very friendly product to actually manufacture. So massive air pollution is attributed to the production of styrofoam in the factories. The biggest thing with styrofoam is that it won't break down in our environment. So it literally has like a million year shelf life in the environment. But some people confuse it breaking apart in small pieces with it actually disappearing and going away. The problem is it's not disappearing and it's not going away. It's just breaking into small pieces, which then means when it gets into the ocean, because it floats in the ocean, it floats in water, it's very light, which means that it's going to surface and accumulate in the ocean. That's when fish start eating it and other wildlife, especially when it's in the ground, start eating it. And you can literally, just break this all apart into small pieces, and it can start getting consumed by cattle. If it gets into the cattle feed or wherever it's at, can just start getting consumed and then of course getting concentrated as it's going down as its end user. So just because it's breaking apart does not mean that it's going away. It's just breaking into smaller pieces. And it's very porous. Styrofoam is porous, so when it's sitting there floating in the ocean, it does kind of act like a sponge, and it will absorb other chemicals or whatever else is in its way there that are going to get into those tiny holes. Now, here's the most important thing when you do get styrofoam in your food. Don't never, ever, ever reheat your food in the styrofoam. Never throw that styrofoam container into the microwave and reheat your food, because there's study after study after study that says, hey, the styrofoam is actually leaching some harmful, nasty things into your food. And everything from it being a carcinogen to reproductive organs in males, the way it affects your health could be very, very detrimental, especially after many years of exposure. And of course, we've been been exposed to styrofoam over and over and over again because we've just grown up with it because it's super cheap to make. Restaurants love it for to-go containers because it is cheap. It's about at least half the price of some of those biodegradable green containers. And I gotta tell you, if you're a restaurant out there, if you're a restaurant owner, if you're a chef, there's so many options now for you to buy biodegradable, unbleached corn, rice, post-consumer or recycled wares to pack your food to go in. And some containers have really gotten really fancy now where it encourages the end user, so the guest that's leaving the restaurant, to actually take it home, wash it, and actually reuse it because it's a very high quality to-go container. But of course, all this does come with a cost. And if you are concerned, like at my restaurant here, if my staff goes and gets food anywhere else in town here, I make sure they take our own container with it, and that we don't have styrofoam coming into our building. But if you are concerned, I've told people this for years, is take your own to-go containers out. The best to-go containers are going to be the glass with a sealable lid where you can actually take it to the restaurant and say, here's what I would like my leftover food packaged in. So, to recap, big news, Ulster County passed this law a year and a half ago, no styrofoam in restaurants anymore, but nobody was enforcing it, and now the health department, the local health department here, when I got my inspection today, wanted to make sure I had no styrofoam on premises. I mean, I love to see green initiatives move forward like that, and where they're being enforced and something's happening. Hey, and the best thing is when you go to a restaurant, and if you are concerned about the styrofoam, say something. Say something to the owner. Say something to somebody there, the management. Say, it would be nice if you honored our environment by using biodegradable to-go containers. And I've been at places where, there's one place that I've gone in the past where I've been so adamant, no styrofoam for my leftover soup he's actually sent it to me with a pot, in like one of his cooking pots, and wrapped it up really tight, where I took it home and I ate the soup later and returned the pot back to the restaurant, the following day, because I was like, no, I have food left over, but I really don't want to put it into styrofoam because I know the detriment of the styrofoam altogether. So Ulster County making a big step to reducing chemicals, reducing our landfill. So that's it. Super excited and happy I could Facebook Live about that. And if you like this, please pass this along, share it, and definitely speak up when you're out at a restaurant.